Hello.
Hi.
Hey Kevin, how you doing?
Yeah, really good. Cheers. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
No, thanks for having me.
I think I've got Natalia to thank for it.
No, she did message me, but I just replied to you just before she messaged me, actually.
Okay, fair enough. All right then. How much time do you have?
As long as you want.
Sure.
Yeah,
Don't say that. I can talk a lot.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm free right now.
I'll honestly try not to keep you too long. We'll do an official start and official end, but when I do the official end, if you just sort of hang around just so I can thank you properly off recording. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Before we start, I had so many questions in my bloody inbox.
Oh, really?
You're a popular guy.
Oh.
All right, let's go. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. You are listening to the Real Life Sports Show with me, yes, Sam Adams, aka the Real Life Coach. Today, I am joined with a very, very special guest who I'm absolutely delighted to have on the podcast. And I'm pleased to say it's the one and only Kevin Clifton. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, Mr. Smiley. You look very happy. You might not be by the end of this interview, but
yeah, you're gonna grill me.
No, I'm not going to grill you. Just that I can talk a lot, and as I said before we started recording, I had a hell of a lot of questions from people when I've got a whole bunch of my own. So we'll see how we get on. Okay. But by way of introduction, obviously most people will know you as a professional dancer that was on Strictly Come Dancing. For how many years? Like 10 years? No.
Years. I did 7 years on the show.
There's me thinking it's about a decade. For 7 years. I would probably guess, and I've watched every series of Strictly, by the way, massive fan. But my parents ballroom danced, and
cool.
Yeah, sadly my dad passed away a few months ago, but right up until the last year of his life, my parents danced, and it was such a beautiful thing, honestly. So I think that's why I love Strictly, to be honest with you. It's just it was nice. That's what got me into it. But anyway, yes, massively, I guess the favourite, I would say, on Strictly. I don't know what you think about that.
I don't know. That's it's very nice. It's very nice of you to say. I loved working on the show. Like it is such a lovely show to be a part of. And I think there's a lot of people got a lot of love for it. And I think it's only since I've sort of taken a step outside of it and I watched the last series. I mean, I was watching it before I was a part of it, but I think when you're a part of it, you almost don't, even on the live show, you can't get a sense of just how many people are watching it and how many people are involved. And you see a big reaction on social media every Saturday night and, whatever, but it's difficult to get your brain out of that bubble, like the studio that you're recording it in and what you can see on your timeline. But then like watching it from the outside, you get this sense of like, just everyone becomes obsessed with Strictly from sort of September to Christmas. And I always felt a bit like, God, people are really into this show. Like people are really obsessed, aren't they? And I sort of had in my head, like when I leave, I'll probably be quite nonchalant about it and not say too much, not talk about it too much. By week 2, I'd become like an obsessed super fan. I got so invested in the show.
Did you? I mean, obviously this is about sports, this podcast, really. And I do want to talk to you about that because I do see it. You were competitive. As a kid, you did competitions and things like that. And we'll come to that. But, you talking about that, when you're in it and you're invested in it, those 3 months, I've spoke to a lot of athletes and I work with athletes and it's like their own little world. It's like the outside world is very, very different and they get caught up in their own little circle. Was it like that for those 3 months of a year? Was it just very completely different on the outside?
Yeah, you feel like you don't see anybody else apart from Strictly people. You see, whoever you're dancing with, the other dancers, sort of people working on the show, the producers, the directors. Like you see all the same people all the time, and you're sort of on this wheel of, go into the studio to do pro rehearsals on Monday morning, then you go to your celebrity, train with your celebrity sort of Monday afternoon until Thursday night. At some point you fit in going to It Takes Two, You see Zoe there, and then you're in Elstree Studios on the Friday doing camera blocking and gym fittings and spray tans and all of this kind of thing. More pro rehearsals, and then Saturday is a crazy day of like getting ready for the live show. More rehearsals, then band calls, and you do a big dress. We dress run the whole show as if it's live, just with 4 standing judges, and then we do the live show, obviously. When people vote, then we record the results show, which goes out on the Sunday, and then Sunday is supposed to be a day off. But if you're through to the next week, you're choreographing the next dance to start teaching the next day. So you're just on this wheel of that week, basically, and it's difficult to see outside of it until Christmas.
Yeah, it sounds massively intensive. You probably couldn't keep that going for any longer than 3 months of a year. I shouldn't imagine, just the intensity of it.
Probably, yeah. It is very intense, and like physically, but emotionally as well. There's a lot happens, and you're sort of, as a pro on the show, one, you have to be a choreographer to come up with routines. You have to be a teacher to teach them how to dance. Obviously, a performer as well, but also you're sort of in charge of this person. You've been put in charge of someone for a few months, and you're in charge of their emotional and mental well-being throughout the whole process as well. I mean, they have a great setup at Strictly, and there's people and whatever, but like essentially you're like the manager of the team. So like I would say that to my celebrity partners. I'd be like, you're like the star striker, and you have to consider me like the manager of the team.
Right. Okay.
And everything that I'm doing, I'm thinking about how you can deliver your best on Saturday night, or how we can together. So it's quite an intense few months, and then you sort of wake up at the end of it and go, right, okay, it's Christmas on Tuesday, and there's like this weird feeling.
I've got to go Christmas shopping. I've got to sort my shit out.
It's like, exactly. Because nothing gets done. Like kind of resumes. And
then I guess you have the tour as well, right? So you go on to the tour as well.
Yeah, you have Christmas and New Year, then the tour, the arena tour usually happens sort of January, February time. You go into rehearsals and then you go off, and sort of mid-Feb that finishes. And then for a lot of us, to be honest, we then go and do our own tours and things like that. So you're sort of constantly on this bigger wheel of stuff happening as well. But it's weird. It's so weird at the end of Strictly. I've heard so many sports, athletes and stuff talk about how everything has been gearing up to that one moment. Like, say if they're training for the Olympics or something, their whole life has been gearing up for this one moment. And then they have this weird moment of like, they win, like they can win the gold medal, for example, and then they have this weird sort of flat sensation afterwards where like everything's supposed to be like, oh my God, I've won the gold medal, but it's almost like a slump. Like in the immediate aftermath, it's this, I've heard them talk about it being this weird sensation of like, well, what happens now? I'm just going to go back to the hotel room and have a cup of tea. Like, and I had that when the year when me and Stacey won in 2018. Like I'd come second 4 times on Strictly.
I know.
And I was starting to think it was never going to happen. And then me and Stacey, and we didn't think we were going to win that night. And then we won, and it was like, for a few minutes, it was like euphoria, and everyone was screaming, everyone's grabbing hold of me. Oh my God, you won. And then after that, it was like, right, what happens now? And then there was like this big after party. Everyone enjoys the big after party, the rap party of Strictly. And, everyone goes to this place, and everyone was like, oh, can I buy you a drink? And all of this. And I was just sort of stood there, not saying anything, just sort of stood there with this glitter ball trophy. And my mum went to me, are you all right? And I went, yeah, I think I'm just going to go home. And I literally, the night that we won, I went home and put my glitter ball on my side table on my little flat in Kingston where I was living. Put my glitter ball on the side, made myself a cup of tea, and got in bed and watched Match of the Day.
Oh man, after my own heart. I love it. Well, there you go. That's it. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? and this is, tying this in with sports, because some of the sports people that I talk to, is almost like getting to the end of your career, like Kelly Holmes.
Yeah.
She obviously won 2 amazing gold medals in Athens, and that was right at the end of her career. And then you do that, which you've been striving to do your whole career. Like, it took her 20 years effectively.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Billy Schwell. He's a world world champion boxer. Same for him. Took him 20 years to reach his pinnacle. And then it's like, well, what now?
Yeah.
Literally, what comes next? And certainly in some of the stuff that I do, helping people navigate that, because I guess the same for you in dancing and then sports is your career. You can have a career-ending injury, or you have that natural sort of retirement.
Yeah.
And when you're in the public eye massively, like you are, and people like Kelly, or you're seen as this great sporting idol, coming to the end of that is really tricky to navigate. From a mindset point of view, because you're used to a lot of attention. I know Billy talks very openly that he literally like fell off the wagon. He literally like didn't know what to do with himself for a couple of years. Rhys Thomas is a rugby player that I know. He played for Wales. Same for him. He literally just turned to drink. Now, I know you haven't done that, but I think there is this thing of when you're in the limelight, when you're going after this big goal and this big dream, and even if you're not in the limelight, for us all, when we hit our Mount Everest, the peak, what happens next is can be a really big challenge and a big mindset shift. So, because obviously you then gave up Strictly.
Yeah.
What was the mindset and the thinking around all of that?
So I guess with leaving Strictly, I was thinking it around sort of because I did one more year after I won with Stace. I did the 2019 series, and I did mention it to them at that point, and I wanted to be just very open with them and say, I am thinking about what I'm doing now, like just at the age, at the age I'm at, and I was doing I'm interested in other things. So like I do a lot of theatre stuff, and I wanted to explore that a lot more, singing and acting and all the other stuff. And things were coming my way in the theatre world, and I thought, at what point do you jump and take up these opportunities? If it's not going to be now, when is it going to be? And I don't want to leave it too late. So I guess I felt that I'd been on the show for 7 years, and I felt like I didn't want to get to the point where I was repeating myself, just in terms of I'd had every different type of celebrity and every different type of sort of journey on Strictly, like the different ways that it can go in terms of the narrative. Like, you had the year that I won with Stace, a year that I went out early with Annika Rice. I had a year where we took sort of a non-dancer that there was a real underdog to the final. I had a year where I was dancing with someone who everyone said was too good from week one. Oh, they must be trained, I had the year that I danced with Susan Kalman in 2017. I mean, she was just the favorite to be eliminated first, the favorite to be eliminated every week, and she was that one that just the nation sort of fell in love with her.
Yeah, she's great.
She's amazing. Yeah, and
I've seen her live, and it was hilarious.
Yeah,
she's so funny.
She was so great. Like, we just became such good mates, and she really just threw herself at it and really went for it, and was sort of didn't take herself too seriously, in that she was okay to sort of have fun, but at the same time she didn't want to be like the joke act of the series and just go out and purposely do comedy every week. And she wanted to really try her best, and I think she surprised quite a lot of people. So I felt like I'd had lots of different journeys on the show, and I said to them at the time, I said, the only real different thing that I can do now on the show that I haven't done already was if you partner me with a man. And they said, look, it's something that we are thinking about doing at some point. Yeah, it's definitely something we'd love to explore. We can't guarantee you that at this point. We can't guarantee that will happen on the next series, and if it does happen, that it'll definitely be you or whatever. Of course we'd consider that, but and at the same time as that happening, Strictly Ballroom, the musical, was announced that was returning as a tour, and it's a film that I've been obsessed with since I was a little kid, since I first saw it. You know, sort of Scott Hastings, the lead guy in that film, became my sort of hero, and it was this. You know, I watched it when I was a kid, and I said to my mum and dad, like, they're going to make a show out of that one day, and I'm going to play him.
Wow.
And I auditioned for it when it first came to the West End, didn't get it, and when it was announced as a tour, I was like, this got to be my last chance to actually do this. And it was like, I had a meeting with them at Strictly and said, look, if I get offered this, I'm not going to be able to turn it down. So I'm just letting you know, like, in good time, this is where I'm at the moment. And then it came to that sort of crunch time, and then I got offered the part. So I just said to them, I think it feels like this is the right deal. It's very difficult for me to turn this down, and I've been having this conversation anyway, so it feels like now's the time. But I've got such a good relationship with them, and you know, I love the show, and I love everyone that works on the show, and you know, so for me, it was never going to be about like, right, that's it, I'm leaving, I'm cutting it off, and I'll never speak about Strictly again. Like, I've got so much love for the show, and you know, never say never about, you know, being part of it again someday. I don't know, but
well, that's one of the many questions that I foolishly, not foolishly, but I put it on my Instagram and I put it on my Facebook that I was recording it, and I do about all the episodes, to be honest. But yours by far, I had the most response. All of these questions. I have to be fair and say a lot of them were about Stacey.
Yes, you are. Yeah. She's a big hit.
Yeah, she is. Like, oh, are you going to marry Stacey? Will you do this, Stacey? Is it all? I'm sure you've heard all of those, so I won't give those to you. But there was a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost my point now because there was a point to it referring to the questions. Oh yes, I know. So with that in mind, one of the questions that was asked more than once was, would you ever go back to Strictly? And a couple of them sort of asked, would you go back as a judge? So I guess let's get that one out of the way.
I would love to be a judge on the show. That's a bit of a bucket list dream for me. Yeah, in the same way that I always said I'd love to play Scott Hastings. Like, now I'm like, I would love to be a judge on Strictly Come Dancing one day. I mean, I don't feel like it's done, to be honest. I feel like I've still got this lovely relationship with them, and there's still something to be done. In terms of coming back as a dancer, it just depends on the situation. Like at the moment, I'm doing other things, like with theatre. So, you know, I can't see it being, for example, this year because of other stuff. And next year, Strictly Ballroom the musical got moved back again because of, you know, everything that's going on. So we're now going to open in September 22.
Right.
So that rules me out of the 22 series as well. So by the time, like, if I was to come back in the 2023, I mean, during that series, I'll be turning 41.
Really?
So, yeah. So
one thing, I did look at your Wikipedia, but I didn't actually notice how old you were. So
no, I'm 38 now.
Yeah.
So I just, it comes down to circumstance. So I would think right now it's unlikely, but I'd always be open to the conversation. And yes, I'd love to be a judge.
Who do you think you'd be like, though? I mean, are you like a Craig Revel Horwood? I mean, there's no one like Craig, to be fair. But
I couldn't be that harsh on them, because I know what it's like to stand on this side of the judges' desk, and I know what they're all going through, because the judges turn up on a Saturday and have a look at the end product. Like, they're not really seeing everything that's happened during the week, and the effort and the tears and the, you know, and all so, because I know what they're all going through, and the sort of stress of it, and, you know, the pressure of suddenly going out and performing live in front of millions of people. I couldn't be as harsh as Craig, I don't think.
Well, and to be honest with you, I'd take my hat off to him, because I think it takes guts to you know, there's so many things, to be honest with me, I'm like, God, I really want to say that, but I like hold back, because I just can't be that blunt, whereas Craig's like, boom, there you go, take it or leave it.
I remember once as I had a conversation with Craig, it was like a couple of years into Strictly, and I said to him, I feel like, look, I know that this is what you're like on the show, but I feel like you you never seem to give a good score to like me and my partners on the show, whoever I'm dancing with. And I'm like, what's it going to take for you to sort of be kinder to me?
Be kinder to Kev.
Yeah. What to get a good score out of you or whatever. And he went, well, you've got to dance better, darling. Right, oh, fair enough.
I love that. That's a very good accent, by the way, as well. Yeah, he does seem quite harsh, but I guess in every when you have those kind of shows, you need the good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
Yeah, he's lovely, really.
Is he?
Nice guy, really. But I have to say that because he's directing me in Strictly Ballroom. So.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He made me audition. Made me audition for the role. He wasn't going to just give me the job.
No, I was going to say, like, I bet he no prisoners, no.
No.
Do you? I mean, the thing is, Strictly's been such a big part of your life, and like I say, it's kind of like the nation's favourite show, or one of three probably that I can think of that we all embrace at a certain point in the year. Do you ever get fed up of talking about it? Because to be honest, I don't think we would talk that much about it, but we seem to have spent 20 minutes talking about it.
I don't, to be honest, because I just, like I say, I think it is wicked. And what I love is that people are talking so much about a show that's about ballroom dancing.
Yeah.
Because it's this thing that I've always loved doing. But like when I was a kid, it wasn't necessarily this big thing that everyone was talking about. Like my mates at school weren't asking me about the Paso Doble. It was just this weird thing that I did. But now, like, even sort of, just blokey bloke mates from school will text me and go, yeah, I wasn't sure, like, Bill Bailey's bounce in his samba was a bit off this week. And I'm watching it, I'm going, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Everyone knows now. Everyone knows about ballroom dancing, which is cool. It's really cool.
Who'd have thought that? Yeah, I can't. When was the first Strictly? I can't remember the year. What's the first one?
Gosh, 2004-ish or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, who'd have thought? Back then, the early 2000s, that ballroom show would be so popular.
I know.
Incredible.
I didn't think so. Like, I was competing at the time, and as a competitor, we were all a bit like, oh, this, they're trying to do come dancing again. It's no one's going to be interested in watching celebrities trying to do ballroom dancing. It's going to be a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
These competitors are just selling out and blah, 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 and all of this. Like, cut to a few years later, I'm trying desperately to be a part of it.
Yeah, I heard that you auditioned, was it 3 times or something?
Yeah. I got rejected twice.
Yeah.
And then, finally got on the show.
Well, what a great addition you've been. Let's talk about competition-wise, because obviously you have done ballroom. I don't know how old were you when you first started? Because your parents were amazing dancers, right?
Yeah, my parents were world Latin American champions, and they had a dance school. And apparently, I started when I was about 4 years old. I don't really remember starting. And my first competition was, I think I was 6. Me and my sister dancing together, and we were the only ones in our age category. Like, I think we went to like Liverpool to do this competition, and we were the only ones in like the under 7s or something. But we were too scared to dance on our own on the floor in front of everyone. So they asked an older couple to dance with us, just so there was someone else on the floor when we were dancing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're the only ones in it, so we won.
Great.
But for us, we'd beaten this older couple. Yeah, and then I was me and my sister competed together until we were sort of teenagers. And then it felt a bit like, oh, I don't want to do a rumba with you.
Yeah.
Weird.
Bit weird, yeah.
Yeah. And then we just got different partners, but we didn't want to compete against each other. So Joe started to specialize in the ballroom dances, and I specialized in Latin American.
Yeah.
So that we didn't compete against each other. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. So, I mean, as a kid, like, what was that like growing up? Because, like you said, you had this thing that you did outside of school that, let's be honest, not lots of boys, I'm sure, that you hung around with did. I'm not sure if any of them did. What was that like as a kid? Were you teased for that, or how was it?
Teased a bit. I can't say I was like properly bullied. the thing was for me, like, I sort of identified the fact very quickly that, like, I stood no chance. Like, I figured out that I had to sort of make fun of myself. Right. If I was to stand any chance, this sort of giving myself like a suit of armor, which was making self-deprecation, you know.
Yeah, works.
And because I was like turn up in secondary school, I'd be competing at the weekend, so I'd turn up on a Monday with an orange neck from fake tan, but like you couldn't put the fake tan on your face. I don't know why, you just couldn't. So my mum had put makeup on my face, but I'd be tanned up to my neck. So I'd turn up with a white face on an orange neck. And everyone knew the reason for this was that I've been doing ballroom dancing in Birmingham on Sunday with my sister, who was in the year below.
Right.
And she was at that age where she was growing a bit quicker than me at the time. So I now had a perm to make my hair stand up a bit, so I looked a bit taller. I was that guy in school.
I need to see these photos. Where's the evidence of this?
So all I could do was like, look, if I take myself seriously here, I'm not going to stand a chance through school. So I would literally come in and not even try and hide it. I would come in going, look at the state of ballroom dancer over here, you know. Yeah. Look at this ridiculous perm. Who do I think I am? Ryan Giggs. You know, like I had to be like that at school. Otherwise it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what got me through. And it's probably what still gets me through, to be honest.
No, I think you're all right now, surely.
Well, just like the year when, the year that I came onto Strictly, I was announced there was 5 new dancers that year. Yeah. And there was 2 boys, me and this other guy, and that other guy was Aliash.
I was just about to say, I'm sure it was Aliash, wasn't it?
Yeah. He was,
he's lovely.
A beautiful looking statue.
Beautiful guy, yeah.
Yeah. So, and there was a newspaper article that they'd been crying out for more Brits on the show. Why is there so many foreigners on Strictly? We need more English, what they're like. And I was the only English dancer announced out of these 5 new dancers in 2013. And as soon as it was announced, they hadn't seen me dance or do anything. As soon as that was announced, there was like a double-page spread of like the new pros, and it was like, oh, this beautiful guy, this girl from Lithuania, blah 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 blah. And then they made a big deal of like, we've been crying out for more Brits. Is this seriously the best we can do?
Really?
Pasty boy called Kevin from Grimsby.
From Grimsby.
So again, like, it's that same sort of self-deprecation kicked in, and I was like, okay, from this point, I'm going to own Kevin from Grimsby.
Yeah,
like,
let's do it.
I'm just going to own it. And like, yeah, that's who I am, and that's who you're going to get. And not try to be beautiful Aliash, because I'm never going to be beautiful Aliash. So.
You've got your own unique charm, like Aliash. And to be fair, it's worked, because I personally, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree, I think you were really one of the favourites. That you were really loved by the nation, and so it definitely worked. And obviously, your dancing's pretty good, Kev. So.
Cheers.
I mean, that means nothing coming from me. The standard I have is basically, well, I can't dance, but I will always dance, because
right.
All my parents that danced, I thought they danced, and they did dance beautifully, to be honest with you, but nothing compared to you. Interestingly, like sort of going back to those early days, then. If I look at your, if anyone Wikipedia'd you, you did a shit ton of stuff. You were youth world #1, I think, 4 times British Latin champion. You won loads of international titles and stuff like that. So you're very well, decorated. And what I want to know is really sort of, being in any competition is tough, sporting competition. And I do see it like that. So I guess 2 things. Do you see it as a sport? And if so, why? And most of the people do, actually, even in some of my comments. There was a couple of people like, well, I get what you're saying, Sam, but So do you see it as a sport? And if so, why? And the pressures that come with competing on a regular basis?
So it's a very big question, and it's one that's been debated quite a lot in the ballroom and Latin world. It's now divided into 2 federations, the competition world. one who very much believe that dancing is an art, and another one that call it dance sport.
Right.
And their aim is to, you know, eventually get it into the Olympics and all of that sort of stuff. So where I sit, I guess throughout my life, it's been very competitive. My personal experience of it is I was fiercely competitive as a kid. Everything was about winning the competitions. Everything was about, one day I'm going to, you know, win Blackpool. I'm going to be world champion. I'm going to win. And I got to a point later on where I stopped enjoying the dancing itself. And I wanted to dance in certain ways. And this is probably why I'm so obsessed with Strictly Ballroom as a film and as a musical and all of this, because I got obsessed with, I wanted to dance in a certain way, and I wanted to express myself in a certain way, and I wanted to entertain people. I always felt like I wanted to get a rise out of the audience. Like, you know, I hated a dead audience. I really wanted everyone to be like, their energy in the room. And I got to a point where there was this conflict of, look, you're doing this and you're getting a rise out of the audience, but you're not going to win the competition dancing like that. You have to dance like this. And I was saying, but I don't like dancing like that. And it's not, for me, just, you know, not for anyone else, but for me personally, it felt boring. It felt like I was ticking boxes to win a competition, as opposed to express myself or make people feel something and entertain, or, you know, or all of those things. So I ended up quitting in my 20s because I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want the competition thing anymore. And I guess on the sport or art thing, I personally feel that dance is an art as opposed to a sport. But I think we train like athletes. I think it's athletic what we do, and we train like athletes, and we especially in competition world, well, and in theatre, to be honest, like a lot of dancers, even ballerinas, you know, they put themselves through the same structures and systems to maintain a certain, you know, physicality and flexibility and, you know, stamina levels, and just making sure you're always on top of your game. So I think it's sort of sport-like, but to me, dance is an art where we express and we make people feel things. You know, that's what it's about. I guess it's a difficult one, but I guess with sport, you know, if Usain Bolt has a really, really bad day and doesn't run like he usually does, maybe Usain Bolt's a bad example because he'd probably still end up winning. But anyone, they're running a 400-meter race and they have a bad day, and the person next to them has a great day, but that person who you've never even heard of is not like, has never won a race before, but they just have the absolute race of their life and they're quicker than that one, then they win the race. And there's no argument about it. There's no but I actually still think that one was better. It's like, well she wasn't. she ran faster. So, you know, it doesn't matter what you think of her running style, she ran faster, for example. Whereas dance is so subjective. You know, you see that on Strictly. It's like some people will be voting for this one, some people will be voting for that one. It's the same in competitions. You know, you have 11 judges and someone might think that couple over there was the best, and someone else thinks that couple over there was the best. So it's so subjective that I don't quite think it's a sport to me. But then you look at something, you know, ice skating's in the Olympics. So if ice skating's in there, then why shouldn't ballroom and Latin be in there? But I think if you're going to put ballroom and Latin in there, then you have to put ballet in there. So you have to put hip hop dancing in there. You know, where do you draw the line? The biggest one for me on this is, so I'm a massive fan, don't laugh, but I'm a huge obsessive fan of pro wrestling, as in WWE, you know, theatre wrestling.
Yes, it is.
So everyone understands that it's a show, it's theatre, and interestingly, they call it sports entertainment. That's how they label it. They don't label it as sports or theatre. They say it's sports entertainment.
Yeah.
And so I was having the discussion with my dad, because my dad was saying, I think it is a sport, what ballroom and Latin is, and it should be in the Olympics and da 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 da. And I was saying to him that imagine like we now have a competition for pro wrestling. And I'm not talking about who wins, because we all know that's just that storyline.
Yeah.
But what they do is incredibly athletic, probably more athletic than what we do. And, there's a real physicality that they have to train for it, and an athletic, component to it.
Yeah.
If we were marking them, say two of them having a match, this wrestler and this wrestler having a match, and we would give them a score out of 10 for that match, for how they performed on anything, on a technical level, their mat skills, their athletic ability, the pace of the match, how entertaining the match was, their character, or the story that they tell in the ring. Right, we'll give that one a 9 out of 10 against that one. Should that be in the Olympics?
Yeah.
It feels like it probably shouldn't. And for me, that's what we do. We're entertainment in an athletic way.
Yeah.
I think that's the best I can explain it.
No, I think that's a good example. I mean, when you were talking, I was thinking, and I've thought about this before, because obviously this was I wanted to talk to you about it, because I see it as a sport.
Right.
I really do. I think, because you're going out there to win. You're not going out there. I mean, I know, although actually for you
I stopped wanting that. Yeah, I got more enjoyment out of it when I stopped wanting to win, and I feel like I became a better dancer when I stopped.
That's what I was going to say. One of my points is when I work with clients, because I'm a life coach, so I look at the person as a whole, not just a footballer or a track and field athlete, the whole. And a big part of what I do and my message is, look, if you deal with you as a whole, as a person, understand who you are, your values, what you stand for, become self-aware, work on your mindset and your personal development or growth, that will hold you in good stead. You'll have a better understanding of yourself. You will show up in the world as who you really are. So that gives you a certain, when you're the real you kind of like, you're freer. You're not putting on this veneer, this front, and you're more carefree. And when you like that, and you like yourself, you understand yourself, we do better. It's proven. You do better in whatever it is that you do. Whereas, and that, like for you, when you freed yourself up to go, do you know what? I just want to dance in my way. You did better because you were being who you are.
Yeah.
And I've had that with sports people where, they show up and they feel like they have to perform. Like performance is how they're seen. They're a commodity really in some instances, especially football and rugby and some of these things. And that pressure is huge. And they don't feel like they can show up as who they really are or do things how they really want to do them. But when they take it, step away and then do that work and work on themselves as a whole and go, you know what, this is me, this is how I show up, this is how I want to do it. Chances are they're going to perform way better. And I know for a fact that they are going to be the best version of themselves. So their potential to unlock that human potential and be their best is, you're unlocking that basically by being you, like you said, like you did. So I think, that's just my take on it. And I know that from what I do and experience, but I think I still think that even though you were saying like, well, I just want to do it this way, I don't care if I win, I still see it as a sport because like I said, I still do some of that stuff with athletes who not, you could say there's who is it? Oh, gosh, trying to think. Roger Federer. So he's a great tennis player. We all know who he is. But he's really calm. Everyone knows he's really calm and cool and collected on. He wasn't always like that. He was an angry young man, and he learned and he did a lot of personal development, a lot of mindset stuff. And basically he just shows up to play tennis. Yeah. Like, yes, he has coaches and all of this, but it's well documented that he will go, rather than think, oh, I've got to win, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It's like, I'm a good tennis player. I'm good enough to win. I'm just going to go and play tennis. Yeah. I want to play tennis. Yeah. And it's that mindset.
I love that because it's very like, it's that thing of play, like this in football, they say play the game, not the occasion. Like if it's the FA Cup final, don't go out to try and win the FA Cup, just play your game of football. And I sort of love that. But at the same time, if he does that and he does that better than the person in front of him, then he wins. That's not necessarily the case in dancing. Like, so five years after I quit the competition world and I was performing with a company called Burn the Floor on Broadway, that's when I feel like I was in an incredible sort of peak of my dancing, really. And I was a much better dancer at that point than I was when I was competing. But if I danced like that in a competition, I would get a much worse result than I was doing dancing the way I was. So there's this weird element to it, like being a better dancer doesn't necessarily equate to getting better results in competition, because it's so subjective. And I just think if it becomes sport, then it becomes that there has to be a sort of a structure to what is the best dancing. Then what is, like, we know what it is in a race, it's who crosses the line first.
That's
in football in football it's who scores more goals than the other team. In tennis, who scores more points, hits the ball past the opponent within the framework, within the court, more times than the other. In dancing, it's like, okay, what are those rules? Because they have to judge it on something that's not just, well, I like them the best. And I think once you lay out those rules, and that's the way it is going on one side of ballroom dancing, once you lay out those rules, then everyone's going to be dancing the same. To try and get that win, they have to tick this box, and this box, sort of in a more efficient way than everyone else. But then I think it squashes artistry. And you don't, and artistry is a luxury, I think, in sport. Like, you get some great artists in sport, but it's not the necessary ingredient to win. Whereas in dance, it sort of is. Necessary.
Sorry to cut you off, Kevin.
No, go on.
No, I get what you're saying there. You make some really good points, because even if I think I was football, I can't remember who I was listening to the other day, but they were talking about how their side are playing football. I think it might have been Tottenham. Not a Tottenham fan. But
who is your team?
Arsenal. What about you?
Well, my team is Scunthorpe United. An immediate laugh. If we're I'm a shareholder at Scunny.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, but my dad's team, if we're talking Premier League, my dad's a lifelong Chelsea fan because he's a Londoner. So they're my Premier League team.
Okay, well, that's not good either way. But isn't it funny how we have two teams as well? Like, Arsenal is like my heart. I've been an Arsenal fan for a long time, but I live in Brighton, so
you sort of follow them.
And my friend's a season ticket holder, so whenever Arsenal come, I always go with her. I have to sit in with the Brighton fans and cheer for Arsenal. It's horrible.
But it is kind of like that in football. It's like, it's that question of like, would you rather play boring football and win, or play beautiful football and not win?
And this is the thing that I was listening to the other day. I think it was on 5 Live Sport, because that's what I generally listen to. And they were talking about Tottenham, and some of the fans were asked, because I think their game is not great at the moment. Is it about grinding out the wins? Would the fans be happy with the ugly football, but they qualify in the top 4? It might have even been West Ham, I can't remember. Or would they rather see beautiful football? And the consensus was they'd rather see beautiful football, rather than the win. Now, I don't know how many fans they polled or whatever, and so you have that. Like, for me with Arsenal, we're not known for our flair. It's grinding out the wins, and
at the moment, but like you at one point,
but a long time ago. Bergkamp, Thierry, those were beautiful days. They
were playing the most beautiful football.
Oh God, I love those days. I love Dennis Bergkamp as well. I thought he was amazing. But so there is still that in football. Like, do you want us to play pretty football? And who doesn't like to see the game played beautifully? We all do, right? But there are those fans that still want to see, a nice game, as opposed to those fans that are like, I don't care how you play, you just win. And it's like that in your, and if you think about like in the Olympics when we have gymnastics, like some of the floor shows that floor shows, I don't know what floor exercises programs they do, that is about certain technicality, isn't it? Gets certain points, and also that it flows together and it looks quite nice. So for me, like dancing isn't too far away from that. It's these certain elements give these certain points, so you can combine whatever you want to get certain level of difficulty, and about making it look nice and flow. So for me, that's where it kind of crosses over. And I guess I think if you can have gymnastics and it's structured like that, then dancing, and there will always be probably those guys that are like, well, we're all doing the same thing, but actually on the floor shows in gymnastics, they're not all doing the same thing because they're putting in different degrees of difficulty, different elements.
But then some of the loveliest bits of dancing that I've seen can be things that are so simple, and that are not difficult at all, but there's just it's just the right thing and the right point in the music just gives you goosebumps, and that's what it's about for me. And I guess I used to have the same, as what we were saying about football, I used to have those same conversations with all my mates in competition days. I would ask them, I'd always be fascinated. I was like, would you rather win at Blackpool, but everyone thinks you're a mad, boring dancer, and just no one likes your dancing, no one's interested, but you win the trophy? Or would you rather, the crowd is going nuts for you at Blackpool, making loads of noise, and everyone thinks you're an amazing dancer, and it's just everyone feels something when they watch you, and young dancers are inspired by you and all like that, but you finish 5th? What would you prefer? And every single one of my mates would say, no, of course you want the win. Really? And I always thought the opposite. I was like, I'd take 5th every time than be a boring dancer. So yeah,
I think there is. I guess it comes down to character, doesn't it? And what's more important to you? Do you want the adoration of the audience, and to feel like like for me, do I want to be the greatest life coach in the world? I'd like to be, but to be honest with you, I'm quite happier having my audience, and that they are inspired by what I do, and my clients are inspired enough to go and improve their life. I don't need to be the greatest life coach in the world. I know it's very completely different, but I don't, because I know that actually I'd much rather impact lives and help people change their lives than I need to be the best in the world at what I do. And I guess I'd like to have praise and admiration. No, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, some of that. So I guess it's a bit like that, really. But it's one of those ones, isn't it, that will probably get debated.
Even me and my dad disagree on that, because Dad sees it as a sport.
What does your mum think?
My mum's sort of probably sat in the middle somewhere on it. But interestingly for me, at that moment where I just lost all love for competing, in my sort of mid-20s, I was like, I just don't get anything out of it anymore. I don't want to dance like this. I don't really like my own dancing. I feel like the audience aren't interested in my dancing, but I'm sort of edging towards a win, but it feels a bit meaningless, and I just gave up, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And people were saying to me, oh, you're throwing it all away. What are you doing with it? You've trained for this all your life. One day you're going to be, the best in the world, blah, 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 and all of this. And I thought I didn't like dancing anymore. I was like, no, I went through this sort of phase of, I think maybe it's what my family has always done, and I've never really made a choice about it. And I want to sort of live my own life. And so I gave up, and people would tell me, no, you just need a break and get re-inspired and da 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 da. But I wasn't inspired by anything. And then I saw Matthew Bourne's Edward Scissorhands at Sadler's Wells, the ballet of Edward Scissorhands, and I sat and watched that, and it made me cry, just watching it. And at that point it was like, I've got it. It's clicked for me. It's not that I don't like dancing or performing. It's like I want to. It's the storytelling and making people feel something that I love. I'm not so interested in the winning the trophies. It's not about that for me. I don't dance to win trophies. I dance to affect people emotionally, to express myself, and to entertain, I guess.
And it's something I talk about. I talked about this for like 20 odd years, because I know you're into your property, I'm into property, we both know Rob. And I used to always say, when I started doing different property strategies, that I want to create win-win situations. I'm not interested in just creating a situation where I win, because I used to buy below market value property and stuff like that. And that was what it was about, win-win. And even with my coaching, and it might sound weird, but I want to create a win-win situation. And that situation is that the people I work with inspire me. So I feel like I'm getting a win because I'm working with inspiring people. And the work that we do together creates change and impact for them. And that's a win-win situation. And it's like that with you, because, and if you think about it in competition, whether that's football or whatever, you can be a footballer or a dancer and want to go out there and win for yourself, ultimately, because that makes you feel good. Or you can be the type of person who wants to create a win-win, which is, I get to do this because it makes me feel freaking amazing. And actually I get to make other people feel amazing as well. Like, you know, I know what I feel when I watch Strictly, you know, and see beautiful dances. And, you know, one that always sticks out for me is Caroline Flack's, which, you know, obviously we saw that, we've seen it a lot recently with everything. And that always sticks out in my mind. And there's a few like that, and they make me feel something. You know, they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So they're win-win situations, and that's what I'm getting from you and just having this conversation, is that you're kind of that guy. You're that win-win guy. This makes me feel good, but I also make other people feel good at the same time.
And it's also that thing, like, you're so right about when you just sort of get in touch with yourself and who you are and how you want to be, rather than feeling I've got to try and be that, because that's what the winning dancer looks like. You know, that's what the champion does. So I've got to be like that. Once I sort of started letting go of that, and I was just like, I'm literally just going to express myself in my dancing, and dance how I feel like I want to dance. Obviously, you still have to practice your technique and stuff, and you know, you can't do anything. But yeah, like, I want to be who I want to be and dance how I want to be. Like, that suddenly feels so much easier to, one, enjoy it for myself, and two, it just clicks into gear, and it feels like the audience believe it a bit more. And
well, it's authentic, isn't it? You know,
I
know, like, authenticity is like one of the most overused words in the world. But when you come from that place, it's very liberating, it's very freeing, and you do perform better. And I think there's a lot of resemblances with sport, track and field, football, whatever. You know, you get some young I did a talk for some young international footballers a couple of weeks ago, and trying to get them to see themselves as, you know, a lot of these young footballers and athletes just see themselves as that athlete. Like, you are not just a football player, you know, you are Johnny Jones or whoever, little Jimmy. You're a person as a whole, you're a human being. Rather than just seeing yourself as a footballer. But like you were saying, you kind of like, you grew up in this world where dancing was a thing and you didn't know any different. And for a lot of these kids in football or whatever, they don't know any different. You know, daddy takes them out or mummy takes them out, plays football as soon as they're 2, 3 or 4. That's all they ever know. And then they feel this pressure to compete, which is at different levels for different families and different people. But, you know, I recently worked with a footballer who lost his motivation. And it was a classic, like that kind of classic, well, this is what I'm expected to do. And you carry a heavy burden. There's obviously a lot of money in top level football as well, and your family expect you to do it, but you lose the love for it because you're having to go to work effectively and perform in a way that you don't necessarily want to. You might at one point love the game or your sport, but are you really free ultimately? Are you free to express yourself how you want to express yourself? Are you free to voice your opinion like you want to? Like, you know, a lot of athletes, you know, they're all media trained. You can't really say what you want to say.
No, of course not.
So you're put in this box, and here you go, this is what it looks like, go do it. And no wonder people lose their motivation, because they lose a sense of self.
And it's a big thing, just this idea of identity. And it was interesting, you know, the fact that the pandemic's come along now. I've always just identified myself as a dancer, You know, in the same way that people say like, okay, I am football, or I am athlete. It's like I'm this dancer, and this is what comes along with it. And just for me as well, things like when I was competing, it was like, I am son of Keith and Judy Clifton, who are champions, so I have to sort of follow that. Or then when I'm on Strictly Come Dancing, it was people knew me as sort of, it's Kevin from Grimsby, you know, and people, you know, they think, okay, Kevin's like this and he's like this, and then you feel this pressure to sort of maintain that. I've got to make sure that I'm this, and it's weird because I'm really on stage. Or you know, when I'm performing on Strictly or whatever, I'm a massive extrovert, and in mid performance, I'm very confident and very sort of, I'm a big performer. As soon as the camera turns off, as soon as I walk off stage, I'm a total introvert.
Right.
And I sort of, in a room full of people, I'm the least confident person in the room. And it's weird. Like, I would come out of the stage, say I've just done a show somewhere, I'm coming out of stage door, and there's a load of people there want a picture because they love Strictly, or, you know, whatever, pictures and autographs and stuff, and want to talk to me. And I'm sort of a bit, I don't know what to say, awkward, sort of a bit socially awkward, a bit shy, a bit whatever. But there's this weird identity that I've got to maintain, which is the guy on Strictly.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin from Grimsby. And I've always had an element of that. Just, you know, I always say that, like, from a very young age, I was being judged in competitions. You know, by judges, until I was in my 20s. Then I went into theatre, and it became, you know, you're judged on reviews, on audience applause, you know, for whether it went well or not. And then I go on to Strictly, and then I'm being judged by the 4 that are sat there, and 13 million people that are deciding whether they're going to vote for you or not. So it's like, you feel like you've got to maintain this thing, because you're getting all of your validation as like you're saying, it's difficult to separate the two selves. Like, yourself, you understand to be this dancer person, and all your sort of validation, whether dancer person is working or not, is coming from outside sources, people judging you. So what's been really interesting for me, actually, is since COVID happened, obviously you wish it was different circumstances, you know, because it's been a shit time for everyone. But it's been this weird, like, probably for the first time in my life, I've had this period of, okay, for a year, like, I don't have to be anyone for anyone. I don't have to be anything for anyone. I'm just indoors. And I almost didn't know who that person was, like who Kevin is sat at home. Because like the boxer who just identifies himself as boxer wanting to be world champion, or, you know, the athlete that is training for that Olympics, you know, or whatever, or the football, like, I identify myself as like dancer guy, and now Strictly dancer guy who's on TV, and Kevin from Grimsby, and people think I'm like this, or I'm like that, or you know, whatever. And now in the last year, I've sort of gone, okay, so whatever this is now, this is what I actually am, like, without all of that. I always think of Cool Runnings. Have you seen Cool Runnings, the film?
Like 100 times.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. Me too.
If you feel shit, watch Cool Runnings.
And you know, at the end, near the end, John Candy's saying to him, if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it.
Exactly.
Like, meaning the win. He was like, how will I know if I'm enough? And he's like, oh, you'll know. And it's kind of that same thing that we're talking about, like knowing what you are without that, without the accolades, the trophies, the achievement, or the applause, or whatever it is. And I feel like this last year, I'm sort of starting to figure it out at 38.
Trust me, it took me a long time. I'm still learning, and that's why I do what I do, because I do it for myself, and then what I learn, I share. And I hope that people figure it out way quicker than I did. But it is right, you know, if you're not happy without it, you definitely won't be happy with it.
No.
And I think there's some real lessons in that. And when this whole pandemic started, I didn't know it was going to go on this long. But I do remember saying to my sister that a whole bunch of people are going to find out whether they like themselves or not. and you know, even for me, you know, I live on my own. And you know, in the time of the pandemic, my dog's died, my dad's died, and I've got divorced. It's been a tough year, but I do like myself. I know that. I knew that before, but I like myself even more now. And I think, and one of the things I say to, you know, when I'm, you know, some people that I work with, it's like, go spend some time on your own. Turn your phone off. Turn the TV off. Do a little bit even every day, even if it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Yeah. You know, I used to always run with music in my ears. Always had to be having something, you know, tuning into me.
Yeah.
And more because I run is like my therapy, really, like my meditation. But now I run a lot more without any sound in my ears, because it's just be alone with my own thoughts.
That's interesting, because I do exactly the same thing. Whatever I'm doing, I've got a podcast on.
Yeah.
Like, whatever I'm doing, if I'm running or if I'm just doing chores in the house or what,
yeah.
even like literally if I'm having a shower, even if I'm just gonna go to the toilet, I'll take a podcast with me just for that 1 minute. Like just I'm always got something on in my ears.
I challenge you there, Kevin, to give it a go. Because one of the things I did in my group was, you know, I challenge them to, I call it idle time. And it is basically do nothing. But when I say do nothing, I mean no phone, no TV, no tech, nothing. Just for 20 minutes a day. And that could be you're out on a walk. Yeah. But you've got nothing else going on in your ears. And that's how we become self-aware. And self-awareness is one of the greatest tools and gifts you'll give yourself to be your best self. Because a lot of people do come to me and go, I know I'm made for more. I know I can be more. I want to be a better person. Okay, spend some time on your own.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. What do you mean? Well, I do, yeah, but without any sound, anything, your phone, whatever. Get to know yourself. Listen to that. You know, we've all got that inner dialogue going on. We've all got intuition, that inner intelligence. But actually, a lot of us don't give ourselves an opportunity for that to come out, because we're constantly on the go. We're constantly busy. You know, we're on our phones. We're watching TV. We're doing something. We have no time for that quiet, still voice to come through, which is those quiet. If you think about it, a lot of great ideas are born in the shower. Well, except for you, because you got music on or you got a podcast. But a lot of people, you know, you're in the shower. There's nothing else going on. You're just cleaning yourself, and you'll have a brainwave.
Yeah.
Because you've given that quiet, still voice the opportunity to come through.
Space. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and so like now when I run, I not all of the way, like I run 6K the other day. I ran 6K with music and 6K back without it. And so the bit coming back, I had nothing, just to get to know myself and self-awareness about, you know, some people don't even want to go there because it's like, I don't really want to know how I tick. But it's one of the best things you can do for yourself, I promise you. You know, what you like, what you don't like, evaluating how you show up in the world and reflecting on your behavior. It's, just being freaking honest with yourself and who you are. It's a beautiful thing. But
exactly. And that's what I mean, like in terms of going into this time, because I've always, I suppose that's like, it's the same situation as the noise in your ears all the time. Like my life has been, am I getting claps basically since as a little kid? Are people clapping me? If they are, everything's great. If they're not, everything's bad. Like that's been my life until now. They used to call me on one of the tours that I did, one of my mates labeled me Tinkerbell. After Hook, you know the film Hook?
Yeah.
And Julia Roberts is Tinkerbell, and you have to, when she's dying, you have to clap to keep her alive.
Right.
So they called me Tinkerbell because I'd literally be like, one night I'd have a really good show, but like the audience has gone nuts, and we've got like 4 standing ovations at the end.
Yeah.
Like this, and I come off like, oh, we have the best job in the world. I love this. I love what I do. What a great night. Everything's brilliant. The next night, this actually happened. Like we got 4 standing ovations that night. The next night, we went out and we did another great show, and we got 3 standing ovations. And I wanted to give up dancing.
Oh my God!
Because the night before we had 4, and this night we only got 3. So my ridiculous brain went, I've lost it.
Rubbish.
I've obviously wasn't as good as I was last night. I'm obviously losing it. I'm obviously past my best. I don't want to do this anymore. And I felt worthless. I got 3 standing ovations and I felt worthless.
Yeah.
And it's like that. And I think just in this last year has been my period of taking the earphones out for the last 6K.
Yeah.
and going, okay, without all of that, without the audiences, without being on TV, without, just sat at home, am I all right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I've finally gone, yeah, I think I'm all right. I think I'm all right without it. So
exactly. And it's like you're enough without all of that,
Yeah.
Like, I've said, of course I want to impact and feel that, I inspire people, but I know that, right now in this moment, I always say today's a non-refundable day. It's saying that I say a lot. And in this moment, am I happy? Do I feel good? Am I a good person? Am I showing up as me? Two keys to success for me is, do I show up in the real world as myself every day? And the other thing I always say is my week, my way, that I get to choose. That basically means, I'm a good person in this moment. I feel good. I know that I'm a kind, decent human being, and I'm enough. I'm enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't get an opportunity to, especially in sports and celebrities. It depends where the celebrities come from, but in a lot of the sport where you've done it from a very young age, and that's all they know, there hasn't been that opportunity to do that work and know who they really are outside of being a footballer or a cricketer or a rugby player. And that's when, like I said before, when things come to an end through injury or end of career, it's like, well, who the fuck am I? And then you can go. Sadly, there's more divorces after career. In sports, there's more bankruptcies, depression, alcoholism, addiction. Statistics are terrible after the career ends. And that's why I'm passionate about what I do, because I think that if you did that work along the way, then whether you were having an injury that ends your career or, you naturally come to the end of your career, you're more prepared for that. You know who you are. You know that this isn't, your sport isn't life. It's just a part of life. Just like dancing for you, there is a big conversation about identity for people like yourselves, and you're seen as Kevin the dancer or Marcus the footballer, but who are you outside of that? And that's the piece of work that that gets missing, especially when you've done something as a child and this is all you know and all you've ever known. I want to ask you, like, great conversation, by the way. I probably talked to you for hours, but I want to talk to you about obviously all that competition that you did until your 20s. What, because this show we do, we talk about what goes on to be that athlete, to be that, you, like you said, you had to train like an athlete. What was that like for you? What was the blood, sweat and tears to show up on the dance floor and compete like?
I mean, a lot of just maintaining fitness and stamina levels. So we'd be given sort of programs that we had to do just in terms of training. A lot of, as I got into my 20s, there was a lot more talk about diet. I don't think it was necessarily great, actually, the whatever nutritional advice I was being given. A lot of the time it was like, just don't eat apart from these protein powders, like that sort of thing. So there was a lot of, don't eat that, don't eat that, don't eat that.
Did you find it easy, the diet side of things?
No, not at all. Right. Not at all. Hated it. And just to be honest, a lot of it was, you're traveling around from competition to competition all over the world, which is sort of exciting. But at the same time, following on from the conversation we just had, really, is that there's this weird pressure to be seen in a certain way all the time, because you're all the time interacting with people who are going to be judging these big competitions. So you want to be seen, like, you want to be seen in a good light in a way, and you'd be having guest lessons with teachers. So you had to play a bit of a political game. Right. Like, you'd be having guest lessons with certain teachers, because they might be judging you at the German Open or at Blackpool or whatever. And you want to go in and have that lesson and make a good impression. So you sort of always have to be on your best behavior all the time in front of everyone. So it's like maintaining this personality of someone that everybody likes and who we can have as our champion, like you had to be that, give off the air of a champion all the time. And then it's just a lot of hours of practice, really, just a lot of hours of, I used to love practicing amongst other couples. So there'd be like practice nights at studios where loads of competitors would be there and they'd play music and you just dance. And there was always a good energy about those nights, just sweaty dance studios. But when the hard ones are the ones that are just like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you're doing a samba. Like no one wants to do a samba at 10 o'clock in the morning. Like it's such an evening thing to do. Like, but you're practicing samba with your dance partner, and there's ego involved, and a lot of couples end up arguing with each other on, because like if me and you are dancing together and then I say to you, no, it just doesn't feel right going into this bit. And then you say to me, well, it's because you're not leading me properly on that bit. If you want me to do this, you need to lead me like this. Well, now you're telling me how I've got to lead. And I don't like that because it hurts my ego because I've got to, and all of that. And you just end up fighting about mechanics of your dancing, which is tedious and practicing those, the technical bits, like we call them rumba walks, those sort of Latin walks where you're walking on straight legs up and down the room. And that's the thing that you do the most. It's like the basic thing that right, I want you to practice rumba walks for an hour.
Oh.
Like, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's so boring. Or the worst, then your teacher would say, now as stamina practice, now I'm going to play a jive. And I want you, it's going to be 6 minutes long, and you've got to keep kicking for 6 minutes of this drive. And it feels horrible. And then, right, do it again. And for the competition, you'd have to do 5 dances in the final, in the semi and in the final without heats, heat 1, do this, and heat 2, do that. In the semi and final, everyone's on the floor, 5 dances. So they'd do stamina tests of like, you've got to be able to do 5 dances in a row without getting tired. So you do those tests, and that's tiring. And there's just a lot of tiring stuff and tedious, boring arguing with your partner stuff. So learning to communicate is difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that, even on Strictly, well, I mean, maybe not so much with your celebrity partner, because clearly most of them don't really understand the technicalities or know how to dance, but you have there's a lot of professional dances that happen. Were there conflict in those or not so much in Strictly?
On Strictly, you mean the pros with each other?
Yeah.
No, not really. To be honest, in the group numbers on Strictly, I think there's a real feeling of the end goal is we want to make this show really good. If I'm honest, when I first joined, there was a couple of them that had sort of been there a few years that were probably on their last year or two, that they could be a bit angsty in the room and didn't like it, especially if like us younger, the likes of me and Ali Ash coming in, like if we were getting put at the front. If us young whippersnappers were getting put at the front or something, or like
egos,
could get a bit attached. A couple of egos in there, but then they left, and then it sort of quietened down. And I think now it's probably the best sort of group more than ever, where everyone's just working for the best result they can for the show. It's very much a team. Which is good.
Ultimately for the greater good. What was the toughest bit about competition then? Because obviously, like, eventually you did give up. But what did you find hardest about competing?
Probably. Well, I don't know whether it was just me being Larry or what, but like I felt like I had to have a lot of dance lessons with a lot of people that were telling me how I needed to dance. And some of the time I would feel that actually they weren't really teaching me much. Like I would feel that that I was probably having lessons with them because I was told to, because they might be judging me at some point. I had to make sure I was in with the right people and make sure I was showing myself, to all the right people all the time. And
did you feel that though? Did you feel that, obviously you spoke about that bit a little bit before, obviously talking about, always being on show and on your best behavior. And when you were talking about that before, I've talked about this with a couple of footballers, like, you go to a new club and hopefully you're going to bond with your teammates, but equally there is always going to be a couple of other players that are up to the same position as you. So they might give you the cold shoulder because you're now here and compete for the same position as them. And then the other pressure that you feel is that if you're struggling with your mindset, your mental health, or you're just a bit down or whatever, they don't feel able to share it because in front of their coach and their managers and all of that, they feel like they can't show that they've got an issue, because ultimately they decide their destiny. And it sounds a bit like that with similarity with you.
You don't want to show any weakness. You don't want to show any vulnerability. You want to show that you're on your way to becoming the champion and you're the one to back, and that you're strong, and also with your partner, I guess, like, unless you've got a relationship with your dance partner that's very trusting, like, you have a few different partners in your competitive career until you find like that partner that you sort of end with. But sometimes you're just arguing, and then there's always that, if it gets too bad, that partner could go elsewhere and find a different partner. And so you don't want that dance partner to think that you're sort of weak in any way, or in a way that might hold them back from becoming champions. There's an element of like, oh God, don't say that, because then they'll feel that they have to deal with you, whereas they just want to focus on winning. So there's that comes into it, and like I say, the egos come in when you're arguing about, when I'm saying you're doing it wrong and you're saying I'm doing it wrong. Ultimately, it's difficult to back down. Like, you want to be proved right, because if you're wrong all the time, then like if you're wrong all the time on it and they're right, then does that mean that they're a better dancer than you and they should probably get a new partner? Like, it's just odd. You just spend so many days like in pure daylight on your own in an empty, sort of non-inspiring dance studio, arguing with your dance partner about the finer details of a samba. It's tedious.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's a hell of a amount of pressure. Look, I've got loads of questions, Kevin. I'm very conscious of time, and I feel like I should ask some of other people's questions rather than my own. Do you need to check your?
No, I'm fine. I just got a missed call.
Okay, cool. I'm sure you probably get hundreds of calls. Let me just see if I can find these questions. I had them all lined up, and now I can't find it. It's typical, isn't it? I have them all lined up on my phone. Here we go. I won't ask too many, but I feel like I should, and some of them are stupid. So, Emma asks, "I'd love to know any tips on remembering to count steps. I had dance classes for 6 months, and I had a nightmare counting. I guess, is it all like 1, 2, 3 in your head and all of that? Do you do all of that?"
So what I used to do with my celeb partners on Strictly, if they couldn't remember sort of the order or the counts of what they're supposed to do, and if you're counting like 5, 6, and 7, and 8, and because the steps go back, 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 but like that, they don't know what you're talking about in terms of. I remember trying to describe the breakdown of the beats of the rhythm in samba, of how they work like 3/4, quarter one, 3/4, quarter one. That's the boat. And Stacey just being like, I don't know what you're talking about. But like what I found I could do sometimes is just give it a sentence. So I used to. What was the one with Susan? We had a really funny one with Susan Calman. It was like it probably wasn't this, but it was something like, and needed she couldn't quite get the rhythm of the counts of this thing in the cha-cha, and we ended up going Susan Calman is an awesome dancer. And then it needed to go da 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 da
Yeah.
da 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 da. And so it was like, Susan Calman is an awesome dancer. Kevin Clifton is a and then Susan would just insert whatever word she wanted at the end of that. Brilliant. But she would have fun with it, and she'd like call me a different stupid name at the end of it. But then she'd remember it, because it'd be like, Susan Calman is an awesome dancer.
Brilliant.
Kevin Clifton is a, whatever.
There you go, Emma. If you're listening, there's your answer. My beautiful friend Carrie said, "Oh my God, I love Kevin," and Stacey in brackets she's put. So for you, please give him a big kiss. So I've done that for you. Done that for you, Carrie. She's one of my good friends. I had to do that. Michaela asked, what mindset tools do you implement during training when you're not feeling it? I think that was a great question.
What was the first part? What
mindset tools did you, I guess, or maybe you probably still do, because you're obviously still doing your shows and stuff. Well, not this year, but do you implement during training when you're not feeling it? Because I guess, like everything, we don't always turn up and feel super motivated.
The thing is, I think sometimes we romanticize, like, I'm a harder worker than anyone else, I'm just going to keep doing all these hours. And sometimes we don't work properly. We just do more hours. We just do more time on it, but we're not actually working efficiently. And sometimes I think it's okay to take a break. It's okay to say, like, I'm just not going to, like, today I'm not going to do it. But then you put a limit on it, like, okay, today I'm just going to not do this. But that means tomorrow I have to.
Yeah.
Like you put that on it. Because sometimes I remember we were having a conversation on Clubhouse about burnout at one point, and you were saying, like, you can feel so burnt out and you feel like you're overwhelmed and you want to quit. And sometimes you don't need to quit, you just need 2-3 days off. And it's surprising how quickly you can recharge, I think, like if you just take a little bit of time off. I certainly found that, but then sometimes what I found, because of course you don't always feel like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get up and train again tomorrow. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But what I've found really helps me now is writing down the night before your plan for the day. Yeah. Because it's a lot easier to let yourself off from something, or I'm not feeling it, if you're just in that moment. Whereas if you've written it down the night before, this is my plan for the day, you're so much more likely to do it. I don't know why. There's some satisfaction in ticking it off.
No, there is. I always say plan tomorrow today, and I do that. And in my group, we set intentions for the day. And even for myself, like I love being outside, whether I'm riding my bike, running, or whatever. But some days I don't want to run, so I always talk about creating the path of least resistance. So plan tomorrow today. And I get my running gear set up the night before, so when I get up in the morning, it's there, it's looking at me, rather than I've got to go to the drawer. And I know it seems like a small thing, but actually you're creating resistance.
Yeah. No, definitely. I heard a story about someone who apparently, like, it was yoga was their thing that they really wanted to keep doing first thing in the morning, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do yoga every morning, and then they just didn't. So they started putting their yoga mat right next to their bed. So they literally rolled out of bed onto their yoga mat. And it just became like this structure. It was like, okay, I'm going to... It's just, there's loads of little hacks like that. I'm finding.
Simple little things, right? It's like, I don't run, like this morning was my HIIT session day. So before I went to bed last night, I work out, and because I've got like a kitchen lounge area. So I literally behind where I am, I've got everything all in one space. I just roll out my workout mat, so it's there as soon as I get up in the morning. Come in here, sort the dog out. It's staring me in the face, and it's like, I've got to do it.
Yeah.
So exactly. It makes sense.
I did another one the other morning, because I was talking to someone, and they were talking about like getting up earlier and blah blah blah. And I thought, right, I'm going to try that. I'm just going to, like, my problem is, like, I always hit the snooze button every morning.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, just get out of bed. And I'm like, I find that really difficult, just to, like, alarm goes off, get out of bed. And they were like, I've got this trick for it. I went, what? They went, set your alarm on your phone, and then put your phone, and set a really annoying alarm, and put it away from the bed where you can't reach it. So like it's the other side of the room, or it's in, just outside the door, but it's so annoying that you have to go and turn it off. And the only way you can turn it off is to get out of bed. And once you're out of bed, you're out of bed.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Loads of hacks like that.
Yeah, no, there's like, and it does work. Like I don't have a problem getting up. I'm pretty good with that, but it's definitely one that I've heard before. Yeah. And it's interesting you saying about creating that space. Sometimes it's okay to have a day off. And I used to always say, like, to my guys, it's like, yeah, all right, you can have a duvet day today. I'll even let you have one tomorrow if you wake up feeling shit tomorrow, but you're not having 3. None of you get 3. You're not having 3. Feel sorry for yourself today. We all need a duvet day now and again, but it's when you let it roll on, and that's when you have the problem.
Because you're always in that with that sentence of like when you're not feeling it. I feel like that's most of the time. If left unstructured, like if you haven't written down a plan, if you hadn't set out, like you say, set out your intentions, like after we finished talking, like if I sit and for 2 seconds go, right, my moment right now, what do I want to do? Do I want to work out or watch wrestling? Well, I want to watch wrestling. Obviously, no one's like, oh my god, I want to work out. Like, I mean, some people probably are, but like, just
I do occasionally. I've got to admit, especially going like,
you always just want it. Like, there's always a nicer option. But I think if you have a plan for it and a structure, even with stuff that isn't that difficult, you would think. Because I just set myself one of like, I'm gonna, I'd love to do a bit of like a writing course because I'm doing more writing at the moment, and I'd love to read more than I do. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I've got loads of time. I'm going to read. And then you just don't, because by accident, suddenly you're scrolling Instagram for an hour. But then I started writing down the night before, okay, wake up at this time. And the first thing we do, make a coffee, go outside and read 3 chapters. And that was my first task of the day. And then that feels like a nice task actually to do. But then I was actually doing it, but I only seem to do it if I write it down.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going through the day reacting to everything that's happening.
And that's, you make that great point about reacting, and this is why I talk about it a lot, is because if we got up with no plan, let's be honest, life push and shoves us around anyway.
The day takes over you.
Exactly. And you get to like 4 o'clock, shit, I haven't worked out, I haven't done X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And the best way to live life, is by intention, is by creating your life. What do you want in your life? So you have to create the space for it, like like you're now doing. Like I'm the same. I have a set morning routine. I bookend my day, morning and evening, and I get up, I journal, I read, and I write. I'm like you. I'm trying to write more as well, Kevin. Not my strong point, but unless I practice and I do it, I'm not going to get any better, right?
Yeah.
So I have to sort of schedule it in, and it does work wonders when you, when you live like that. Some people think it's boring or, how is that going to help me? But actually, it saves you time. It creates discipline and some great habits. And when the shit hits the fan, you've got something to fall back on. These routines will help keep you grounded. So I think there's a lot to be said for them. And I think one other thing I wanted to pick up with you was when you talked about overwhelm. And that happens a lot for a lot of us. Obviously, the way we live these days, what we've got going on, our ancestors would have to deal with. The amount of stuff we deal with in a bloody week, they probably dealt with in a lifetime. I think that's, I can't remember who says that now, but somebody does say that. So we are consuming a lot of information, work, and everything like that. And we talk about this thing, overwhelm. And the thing with overwhelm, I learned this from a guy called Michael Neal, is that overwhelm, we think it means we've got too much to do, but it actually isn't. We're applying too much thought or too much thinking to things. Overload is when you've got too much to do. Overwhelm is when you're attaching too much thinking to things in your life and the things that are going on. So if you are genuinely overwhelmed, it's doing something around your thinking and setting certain things aside. If you've got overload where you've just filled your agenda up, or you've got an agenda problem, you've got a calendar problem, and you need to take some things out. And so it comes back to overwhelm, comes back to basically creating space, but creating space in your mind.
And for things that that definitely align with what you're trying to do, what your intention is, or what your highest values are. Because if you just love watching Netflix, I suppose, like, and someone goes, you're going to be watching Netflix like all day, every day for the next 5 days, you're probably not going to feel overwhelmed, like, because you just love watching Netflix. Like, if you love what you're doing, you're not feeling that overwhelmed, I think. So maybe like it's some kind of, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but like maybe there's some kind of conflict in there in your head, like you're saying, you're thinking about things too much because there's some kind of anxiety attached to it, or like, something else in there that's not aligned with the thing itself. I guess like what you're saying about Federer, about like he could be overwhelmed if he's overthinking. Right, I've got to make sure that I win Wimbledon, and I've got to look good doing it because of this brand deal that I've got. And I've got to show off the logo, and I've got to do a good interview afterwards, and I've got all these things that actually are not the most important things to him, really, and his values and beliefs. But it's just he's got anxious thoughts about these things. When actually you were saying, like with Federer, he just goes on court to play tennis, and he likes doing that. So
exactly, and that comes back to that bit I was talking about, which I'm always talking about, is being the real you, being who you really are. And you'll play with much more freedom. You'll perform better. You'll unlock your potential, and you will. I believe you'll be your best that you can be. So this is a great conversation, by the way.
I love it.
All right, I'm going to ask another question. Jackie asks, which dance puffs you out the most? Is it the jive?
I think it would have to be. The jive's definitely the most energetic. And they put it in competitions, they put it at the end. Like, so you, in a Latin competition, you do cha-cha, samba, rumba, paso doble, jive. So at the end of like a grueling competition where you've gone through rounds and rounds and rounds, and then you're in the final and you do the 5 dances, that last jive is like a killer.
It's like
it's just
on it. It's like
it's literally just survival. The jive is a tough one, and especially if you're doing it right. Like, there's ways that you can do a lazier style of jive, but if you're doing like a proper energetic jive, it's like it's a killer.
I used to watch my mum always, my mum's 84 now, but she's as fit as a flea. And like I said, sadly my dad passed away, but she always had more energy than him, always fitter. And watching my mum do the jive was amazing. Like, she had so much energy, it's unbelievable. I take my hat, I can't jive for like a minute. I mean, I can't really jive very well anyway, but I can't badly jive for a minute. Even though I can run and cycle and do all sorts, jive. No.
Yeah, but that's interesting, because I feel like I could jive for a long time. I'm good at that. But then the other day I went to there's some tennis courts in the park where I live, and my next door neighbour was like, "Do you want to go and play tennis?" I was like, "Yeah, brilliant." And neither of us are very good, but it was, we were allowed all of a sudden, the restrictions, we're allowed to go and play tennis. So we're like, yeah, let's do it. And he's got a couple of rackets and some balls, and we went and played tennis. And I was exhausted. Like, a couple of games in, I was exhausted.
Seemed like a good idea, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird.
I loved it, but I was knackered.
Last week, one of my good friends said, and I love tennis. Like, tennis is probably the sport I love the most. Like, I'll watch it live. My dad was a great tennis player. I'll watch it on the TV. I'm a massive Serena Williams fan. I'm shit at playing it though. So I haven't played for ages, and my friend said, "Do you want to come play tennis? We can play tennis." So this was just this week gone, like Monday. And I loved it, but like you, I was absolutely only an hour. I was like, how do these tennis players play tennis for 3-4 hours? I've no idea.
Whole new level of respect for like them that just playing, when it's a 5-set thriller, and I'm just like, I don't know how you're still standing up.
They're incredible athletes. So if you want a game, Kevin, maybe me and you should play, because it sounds like we've got the same kind of ability.
I don't know, I'm sure you'd batter me. I'm like,
honestly not. If you saw it, you'd think, I'll give Sam a game, I might win. I might actually win. Okay, 1 second. I don't want to carry on with these questions too much because it's not fair. What was the best costume you had to wear in Strictly?
Oh, I suppose. Well, I loved on my first year. I did Paso Doble with Susanna Reid, and they made me this red sort of Paso, matador suit, and I was doing flamenco on a board at the beginning. I had a microphone going down the trousers to my heels to like do this flames around it. I just loved it. So that Paso outfit, I've still got that, and then probably. Certainly one of the funniest ones is when I did Minions with Stacey.
Yeah, I remember. Do you know why I remember that? Because I love Minions. I love the Minions.
I remember I fought against it for so long because my idea for Movie Week that I pitched to them was, let's do Tomb Raider. So Stacey can be Lara Croft. It sort of fits with her traveling around the world, being the sort of fierce, independent woman. Brilliant. Yeah. And I wanted to do, because the latest Tomb Raider film had the song, I'm a survivor.
Yeah.
I thought, we'll do that. We'll do like a samba or something to that. And she can be Lara Croft. And they were like, okay, I mean, it's not a bad idea. What do you think of Minions? I was like, what? I was like, why do you always do this to me? Because they know I always end up saying yes.
Yeah.
Like, some of the others will go, no, I'm not having any of that. Don't dress me up as a cartoon or any of that. I want to do something cool. And I always end up saying yes. So what about Minions? And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And then I asked loads of people. I said, what do you think? Tomb Raider or Minions? Without giving them any context. Just Movie Week, Stacey, Tomb Raider or Minions. And everyone said Minions.
Yeah, Minions are great.
Everyone was like, definitely do Minions. 100% do Minions. I was like, oh, what? And then I found this really cool choreographer who was doing the group number for Strictly. And she's a commercial choreographer called Beth Honan. And she choreographs all of Little Mix's shows and all of that. Like she's brilliant. She's really cool. And I thought, if anyone's going to get it, it's going to be Beth. And I said, Beth, I really respect your opinion. So I'm going to give you, again, no context, just Stacey Dooley, Movie Week. And I say I had no context. I framed it a little bit. I was like, Minions or Tomb Raider? And she went 100% Minions.
Oh, brilliant.
I was like, oh my God. And I was like, why? And she said, because no one watches Strictly to see people take themselves too seriously.
This is true. Rule number 6.
Yeah. She went, we all know that Stacey is a fierce, independent, strong woman that travels around the world. We know she's like a Lara Croft.
Yeah.
But we've never seen her being a minion.
Exactly.
We want to see people having fun and being all right with having a laugh at themselves and all of this. And I was like, all right, we'll do Minions. And it turned out to be the best decision I've ever made on Strictly because everyone enjoyed it.
And everyone loves the Minions.
Everyone
loves the Minions.
Yeah.
Something I say a lot is, don't ever forget rule number 6. And of course, everyone goes, oh, what's rule number 6? Rule number 6 is don't take yourself too seriously.
There you go.
So if you're ever in a shit situation, or I don't know, if Stacey's around and she comes in and she's going, ah, and you go, Stacey, don't forget rule number 6.
Rule number 6.
Calms everything down. Do you have any regrets about leaving Strictly? I think I know the answer, but
no, not really. I suppose I miss the gang a bit. I suppose it's a lovely team that work there. Not just all the dancers, but all the behind the scenes, like the wardrobe team, the hair and makeup team, the camera team, and props team, and producers. It's such a nice sort of family atmosphere there. So, I miss the gang a little bit. But no, I feel like I left at the right time, and I'm doing other things, and I'm doing a lot of theatre. Well, once theatres are open again. So, and like we said before, I'd still like to come back and be a judge.
Look forward to that day. Right, I'm going to try and wrap up in the next few minutes. I just want you, I guess, what's been your highlight in the last, pretty much most of your life, because you've been dancing pretty much most of your life. What's standout highlights for you?
Standout highlights of it, I suppose. when we went to Broadway with Burn the Floor.
Oh yeah, I read somewhere before you loved that, didn't you?
Yeah, back in 2009, because I just didn't even imagine that was a possibility. It was so far beyond, and we really worked hard for it as a company. We were performing in tiny little theaters here and there. We were performing in like casinos, like a casino in Reno, Nevada, to sometimes to about 11 people. At one point we were doing a contract in a theme park in Busch Gardens in Florida, dancing in front of one person, because the rule was if one person came in, then you had to go on. Right. And we were doing three shows a day in this, like imagine like a theme park where you can go and get like your burger and fries and there's a bit of a show on.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Garden, so yeah.
Yeah, so it was this rainy day and this one kid came in, not interested, just eating his burger and fries, and we had to go on and perform. But we would always work really hard, and we really sort of believed in ourselves as a show, and we went to bigger and bigger and bigger, and we ended up in San Francisco in this theater that was like potential springboard to Broadway. And then we were told, you're going to Broadway, and it was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be a 7-week run or an 8-week run that we'd signed to do on Broadway, and it just kept selling really well, and reviews were great, and word of mouth was great. We stayed there for about 8 months.
Wow.
And so that was really special. And then I suppose I've got lots of special moments with Burn the Floor. I just love performing with Burn the Floor. And then I guess, Strictly as well, really. Like there's a few moments on Strictly. I think the Paso with Susanna Reid, because it had taken me a few goes to get on the show, I always felt like I was sort of like having to earn my keep, and I felt like that night sort of cemented my place on the show a little bit.
Brilliant.
I think when me and Susan Calman did Quick Step to Bring Me Sunshine.
Oh yeah, I remember, yeah, that was nice.
It was just, I had such a lovely time. Like it just felt amazing that night. Yeah. And she did great, and she was so happy, and like, I don't know, it just all sort of came together. And then I suppose dancing with Stace, really. And
I'll say it, haven't you?
yeah. I mean, winning with
this, but if she does, said it.
As much as I'm all about, dancing as an art and I just want to express myself and entertain, it was still nice to win the glitter ball. It was a really lovely moment.
Yeah.
Winning with Stace that night was amazing. And I think doing the Paso with Stace, there was a few moments with Stace. Doing the Paso with Stace, because she struggled all week. It's like she just could not get it. And then finally, on the Saturday night, it all came together, and she just blitzed it and was amazing. Yeah, that was. But there was a few dances with Stace that I can look at and go like, that was just.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just did that.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and that's what's so great about the show, isn't it? You hear this a lot, and I hate it coming on here and asking the same typical questions, but it's bloody hard not to. But you see this person turn up at the beginning, and think, shit, they ain't going to be able to dance for toffee, and they can't. But by the end of it,
it's incredible what they do. Yeah, and it's just pure. It's focus, because people are always like, how do they go from doing nothing? They must have all had some training before coming on, but they don't. But it's like it's this weird sort of pure focus training, because someone came to me and said like, but I've been dancing for however many years and I still can't dance like that. And I was like, yeah, but how much do you do? Like a week? He goes, well, we go to our dance class on a Thursday, an hour. I was like, so you do an hour every Thursday. So you do this hour where you're learning something, and then you forget about it for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
You're not focused on it. You're not practicing it. You forget about it for a week, and then you do an hour the next week to sort of remember it and consolidate. And you'll work for 6 weeks on that same bit, an hour a week. I was like, that bit that you've done, we do in the first couple of hours of our week, and the rest of it is we're just still going, just focused, training.
It's that total immersion, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some people really work really well like that, don't they? Like that's how, or learn well like that. I learn well. Like I've got my full motorbike license. There is no way I could go for a lesson once a week or whatever. I knew I had to go for 7 days and just be there every day for 7 days.
Yeah.
I'd never have done it otherwise. And I've done a lot of things like that in my life, because I just know that I learn best like that, by total immersion.
Yeah. And then it's sort of, not only are you training the muscle memory of all the movement, but you're also sort of training the muscle memory like of your brain and its routine.
Yeah.
Okay. This week, this is how my week goes. I'm practicing this, and I'm training this, and I'm learning this, and it stays in. And you know,
and that massively helps you physically as well. There's loads of research into that, like just thinking about it and, you know, going through the moves in your head, like athletes, you know, before the race, and keep repeating that in your mind has an impact on the actual event. So there's loads of research around that.
Yeah. So like by week 8, they're learning the routines quicker, even if it's a completely new routine and not like something they've done before. It's completely, the learning process is completely different to week 1. They're just in that zone.
Awesome. Well, apart from Stacey, obviously, who is your favorite dancer outside of Stacey?
In terms of Strictly, or in terms of
Strictly?
I just don't have an answer. Like, it's too hard. All my partners have been great, and you know, I've had an amazing time with all of them, and they've all brought something different to the table.
Was it hard? Like, and I'm going to pick on Alex Scott because obviously I like my sport, and Alex played football. I'd love to get her on my podcast as well. So, but I'm going to pick on her because actually you didn't start with her, did you?
No.
Because she started with Neil. Yeah, and then you came in and took over, and you know, you guys did amazing together. What was that? How did you find that? Because that is completely different to all of your other experiences.
Yeah, well, for me, it was just a case of like, okay, there's someone new. I've got to, as quickly as possible, find out, you know, sort of how she works, but also how her and Neil work, because it'd be wrong for me to come in and start changing her whole process, especially because it's not her comfort zone either. What was brilliant was, first of all, Neil was choreographing it in a way that, because he couldn't perform it, he was like, okay, I'm not choreographing for me and her now, I'm choreographing a routine for her and Kevin. So what's going to work well for Kevin as well as her? So he took that attitude, which was good. But what was really interesting about Alex, and I don't know whether it comes from her, you know, being in sport, was that she was very much like, it didn't phase her. It wasn't like a lot of people. I would have totally forgiven her if she would have been, oh my God, what's happening? Oh my God, this is all completely different. It feels different dancing with you, and you work differently, and oh God, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm embarrassed in front of you, and blah, 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 all of that stuff. Like, I would have been like, yeah, I get it. She wasn't at all. She was just like, she was so like, okay, this is the situation in front of me. This is the situation I'm dealing with. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the pass of the ball that's come to me. That's what I've got to work with. Not trying to control it. She was just like, there's no point in me getting stressed over it. Like, it's going to go how it's going to go. I've just got to, you know, and I was being almost tentative. I was like, do you prefer it if I show you like this? Or, you know, because I don't know if Neil does it in this way, or would you prefer it if I just chuck all the choreography at you straight away, or work with you on this bit of technique? And she was just like, you're the expert. I'm in your hands. Whatever you say, I'll just do it. And she was so calm under pressure. Like, she really was. Like, the night that I had to go on at the last minute for Ghostbusters, because that really was last minute that Neil got injured, and I did not know the routine.
No, I remember that.
Before the show went live, like, and I was being taught the routine on the fly, and she was and she was so calm under pressure that she was just like, look, it is what it is, you know. And I messed it up halfway through the routine, and she kept it on the right track. And she was talking, normally it's the pro talking under their breath to the celeb, going left foot and 5, 6, 7, 8, and like, we've become very good ventriloquists.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
She was the one doing that to me. She was like, and left, and now grab the gun and turn on the floor, like getting me through the routine. And it was so impressive to watch her do that. She was brilliant, really brilliant.
That's really cool. 2 questions, I promise, and then I'll let you go.
Oh, yeah.
You did say that you had no time.
Yeah. I'm easy.
I bet you're wishing you hadn't said that.
No.
I guess what's life like for you now going forward? Obviously, we're now starting to come out of the pandemic. You know, what's your plans for the future? With everything that you're doing.
So I can't wait for the theatres to open because I got some shows to do. Burn the Floor, we're going out. Actually, it hasn't been announced the dates yet, but Burn the Floor, we are going out soon. Back on tour. yeah, sure. And Strictly Ballroom, the musical, obviously is going out from September 22. There's a couple of other projects that I'm not allowed to announce yet. They haven't been announced, but theatre stuff that I'm doing, which I'm really excited about. So I'm doing a lot more singing and acting now.
Cool.
I'm also writing a TV drama.
Oh, wow.
Based on my experiences in the competition world of ballroom dancing.
Brilliant.
So that's, the wheels are really starting to turn on that now. And I'm also writing a children's book as well about surprisingly, a young lad who's a ballroom dancer, a young lad who discovers ballroom dancing.
Wow, that's amazing. You're way ahead with the writing than me. I made 2021 the year that I'm going to write my book.
Yeah.
But the second half. I wish you well with all of that, Kevin. I really, really do. I guess my final question is then, what one question have I not asked you that you wished I had?
What one question? I think you've asked me all the good ones, to be fair.
I want to come with all the questions that no one else asked, but it's really difficult.
Yeah, but it's good because we've talked about, I don't often get to talk about sport and art in terms of dancing, and we've talked about, identity and our habits and those kind of things, and I love that. I love all the mindset stuff. The only thing you didn't ask me was, what would you have been if you weren't a dancer? And the answer is a WWE wrestler.
More outfits. You just like outfits.
That's it. I just want to get tanned and put an outfit on at the end of the day.
I mean, I'm so old. I remember watching wrestling, like way back in the day before WWE, and it was proper big. Do you remember Big Daddy and all of that? Well, you probably don't, because you're not old as me.
Well, I've heard of Big Daddy, yeah.
I watched Big Daddy. That's how old I am. And that's what we only had like 3 channels on the TV then, and that's what we watched on a Saturday, was the wrestling.
But I won't go off on a tangent about that, because as Stacey tells me every day, please stop talking about wrestling. Because she doesn't care.
I was just going to say, she's obviously not fallen in love with it like, you loved it, so I'm going to love it.
Because what I tend to do is I compare everything to wrestling. It's like, because I won't go off on a tangent about it because it'll be another 3 hours. But basically, like, to me, Strictly Come Dancing and pro wrestling are the same show, in what we do. And reality TV is born out of wrestling. It's just that wrestling's ahead of the game. In wrestling was where reality TV is now, produced reality. Sit down and have this argument at the table for the cameras. Like that. That's wrestling's been doing that for decades. It's the same thing. It's the same idea. And to me, the narratives and storytelling of pro wrestling is the Shakespeare of today.
Pro wrestling, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that to come in this conversation.
And we can literally be watching Cool Runnings and I'll start talking and she'll go, Kevin, please don't start comparing it to wrestling. I don't want to know. I just want to watch them do the bobsled race.
How many times do you think you've watched Cool Runnings?
Loads of times.
Me too.
Cool Runnings, Strictly Ballroom. I've probably watched more than any other film, I reckon.
Kevin, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm probably going to have to chop this podcast up into 3 episodes.
Whatever you want to do.
No, I'll probably just chuck it all out there. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and just have this discussion around sport, Scunthorpe, pro wrestling, mindset, habits, and everything in between. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me on. Really, really cool.